don't need to put on pants for this show. You just need
Well,
to put on a
that's
shirt.
more than anyone else here does.
Hey, I took a shower.
I took a shower yesterday. Come on. I took a shower yesterday. Come on.
The Lovecraft eZine setting the standards,
Yes.
raising the bar. The Lovecraft
right.
eZine setting
Someone,
the
I won't say who, tweeted the other day.
Someone, I won't say who.
Oh, who's got me echoing? Bridget? Oh, who's got me echoing?
I don't. Probably. Hold on.
It's trippy.
Probably.
It's
Hold
trippy.
on. Whoa.
Welcome to the Lovecraft eZine podcast. Am I still echoing? No. Thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome.
May 31st, 2020. That being your first offense, we'll let it slide. I can't fire her. She's famous now. We'll tell you all about it in a minute.
Hey, she's had music written for her.
That's right.
Thank God, because that's the only reason I'm here is to glom on to some famous people.
You're in the right place.
That's why I'm here.
So no, someone I won't mention who recently tweeted. It wasn't one of us. Let's see, what was the direct quote? If you're gross and smelly, you're probably into Cthulhu. You probably think Cthulhu when you think of fantasy. So,
well, that's probably right. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with the statement.
Who spoke those words of wisdom?
You guys can Google it. All right, so we're gonna do introductions. Upcoming guests. I want to cover that real quick. Excuse me. Well, first of all, Jeffrey Ford is our guest today. Hey, Jeff.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Next week, Matt Bartlett. Week after that, Eddie Generous. Week after that, Scott Kennemore, who wrote a book called Lady in Darkness, which I guess is, Lake of Darkness. It's on my TBR for the June 21st show. The 28th, I'm sad to report that both Paul Tremblay and Stephen Graham Jones will be here. So, Langan, you might want to call in sick that day. It's up to you.
Oh, celebratory pickles for everybody.
That's June 28th. July 5th, F. Paul Wilson. July 12th, Ellen Datlow. July 26th, Larry Barron. August 23rd.
So Ellen is still slumming with us?
Apparently.
She's got
August
some books
23rd, I don't know who that is, so we won't even mention it. John.
I hate that guy.
Yeah, John somebody is the guest. He's got a book coming out. What's the book coming out, John?
Children of the Fang.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It's not My Life as a Stripper. That's under a pseudonym.
Got your OnlyFans and.
You and Robert Chambers. Okay, so I also want to thank the patrons and everyone who's been sending me funds to keep the lights on. I've got my PayPal.me address in the show notes. So thank you.
So to quote Grunkle Stan, we put the fun in, no refund.
That's right. Exactly right. Now, most importantly, some of you may not be aware of this, although you're probably starting to suspect that John Langan is becoming a regular to semi-regular panelist on this show. Yeah,
Whoa. I like to podcast around, okay? I'm not making any firm commitments. Okay?
They booked me before I knew it.
Excuse me.
Before I knew it, too, yeah. No, actually, he said Ford, and I said, at last, my revenge.
Well, I really don't think we've hazed him properly, and I kind of like I've not used the screen share on this application before, so let's see if it works. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put this up. Can everybody see that now?
You're all along the side now.
Oh, they're all
Oh.
on.
Oh,
There
okay.
you go.
Oh,
Do you see John Langan there?
That is,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
how I look all the time.
Yeah,
What the fuck?
yeah. The face now. Mr. Ford kindly sent this to me. The face. He looks like to me. He's going. What the hell did you just say to me?
That's Langan in a good mood.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, all right.
Unlike that picture, that author picture he has where he's sitting at the picnic table.
Thinking about ways to kill people. I'm just like, Ford, you're up against the wall, Ford.
Yeah,
I saw that picture. I was like, what's he so pissed at? The book's doing good, man.
in
Not good enough.
in that photo, which I don't have, he's staring thoughtfully into the distance. So
it's a lie.
Yeah, thank you. That's better said than I could have done right there. Okay, so here's another photo of John Langan. Can everyone see that?
Oh my goodness.
glorious. Yeah.
Well, that was last year after I had broken my foot, and I had this cane that my son had given me, my older son had given me as a joke years ago, like, ha ha, old man. And then I needed the cane as it turned out. And when I was in the hospital having my foot x-rayed, the technician who was like, oh, that's a good cane you got. And I was like, oh, my son gave it to me. And he was like, oh, man, I'm superstitious. I would punish him for that. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
It's just the eyes say it all in that picture.
They say it in all the pictures. Just utter lunacy. The dosage on my meds, it's completely off.
All right. The comments I'm reading say that you guys can see it, but the viewers can't. So I'll stop this nonsense. However, there is one more picture that I won't show, where John is kind of going, and I should. This was on Locust Mag a couple years ago. Photo by Andra Bockhorst. We should always give credit to those where it's due, and Langan's going like that. And apparently Locust Mag thought that was the best photo for the article.
Yeah,
Can you share them on the Facebook community? Then everybody could see the beauty.
I will do that after the show. I can't.
Thanks. Thanks so much for that suggestion. Yeah.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
be immortal.
So there's an age-old question which I finally asked about a year ago, and I said if Langan and Laird Barron and Paul Tremblay got into a fight, who would win? Because I think, John, you're into martial arts, and
well, clearly I would win this fight. Nobody believes this. Everybody and their uncle is like, Laird. Laird would win. And
I think everyone says Laird, but you actually did not say you would win. You said that Paul Tremblay has anger issues and that he would Hulk out and win. But after seeing these angry pictures of you, I'm not so sure.
Well, I've got the club. You see, I would let Paul and Laird fight it out, and then I would dispatch the winner with my club.
That cane looks like the cane Jack Palance uses, Mr. Hyde.
I mean, is it heavy as it looks? Because it looks like the head.
Looks like you could bash in a person's skull with that.
Yeah.
It is pretty heavy. But
if you hadn't told me it was a cane, I thought it was a hammer or something.
I thought it was the staff of Odin.
Possibly Matthew Carpenter on the trail.
I took the picture, but I remembered it before I went back and looked at the picture as a sledgehammer that he had. I swear to God,
carry around a sledgehammer wherever I go.
With those like glaring cross eyes behind the glasses, like
Wouldn't that be great?
God, I thought he had a sledgehammer for some reason.
Wouldn't that be great if you just went like every time you went to a convention or something like that, you got up for a panel, you just put your sledgehammer down on the table, and you were like, I'm just going to leave this here.
If they actually ever do have ReaderCon again, we got to bring some sledgehammers.
Absolutely, the Sledgehammer Twins.
Okay, so let's find out if I really can or cannot multitask. I'm posting them to the Lovecraft eZine message board right now. In theory, while we do introductions. So why don't we start with Rick and work our way over?
Rick Lay Ryder.
Okay. Oh, let's see. Matthew Carpenter, and you have a prize, don't you?
Yes, our prize this week is a copy of the paperback from Innsmouth Gold, Ancestors and Descendants. It has little interior art pictures, but it is an anthology of things that riff off of Lovecraft stories. So what happened before The Rats on the Walls, what happened after Arthur German. It's just an enjoyable little anthology of Lovecraftian tales. If you want to win it, put the name Ancestor into the subject heading and send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com. We'll draw a winner in about 2 weeks. And then the last thing I'll say is we'll be talking about Vast the Night.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be our movie next week for movie night.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, I liked it. We'll talk about that after we interview. What's your name? What's your name again, sir?
What is my name?
Michael Sisko.
Yes, after we interview Michael
Exists.
Sisko, we will. Oh, and it turns out I am able to at least poorly multitask. So Langan is on the Lovecraft eZine message board for those of you who are members. And if you're
That's
not, you can
sexy, John
me.
Langan, to you, Davis.
Matt, thank you for bringing that phrase into existence. Appreciate it.
Well, you're going to bump me down, I'm sure there's a reason. I'm speculating.
It was random, but now I'm going to bump you down to the bottom. So, yes, John Langan, you want to introduce yourself?
John Langan, I'm here so you don't have to be.
Bridget, did you introduce yourself yet?
No, hi, I'm Bridget. I'm a composer, conductor, artist, creator stuffs.
Yeah, and your website, well, two things about Bridget. First of all, your website, you got some cool stuff on there. I posted on the big Lovecraft eZine page the Necronomicon box the other day. What's your website address? There's some really cool Lovecraftian music boxes that she creates.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody that's been trafficking my site. I appreciate it. It's Bridget-Brenmark.com.
It's BRIDE.
DGETTE, like a small bridge. Bridget.
TTE. Yeah, I've known some Bridgets without the extra T and E at the end. So that's why I wanted to.
My mom wanted to be fancy, I guess. So, yes.
Right. And Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather. I'm an artist, and my stuff's at sandpaperdaisy.com, and it's creepy.
And your what?
Oh, my art is creepy.
Oh, your art is creepy. Okay.
Some people have thought that in the past.
Okay, the creepy art is good. Did I get everybody except for Jeff, of course? Okay. So for those who don't know you, Jeff, I think maybe one person out there watching or listening may not know you. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself? You've been writing for a long time.
Are you kidding me, Mike? Nobody knows who the hell I am. That's the problem.
Oh, that's the problem. Okay.
I have been writing for a long time. I write stories and novels. A lot of them speculative, horror sometimes fantasy, sometimes mystery. And, I've been writing for I don't know, all my life really, but publishing for the last 20 plus years.
Well, you've got a new book, Out of Body.
Right. Out of Body, yeah. I have 2 new books out, actually.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, but I don't have I should have brought a copy of it with me. That's so stupid.
No, that's fine.
I have that
title?
big collection from PS too. It's a best of that goes back to the beginning, and it's got 500 pages worth of stories in it. And a new one is in that. You got it, John? It's in the bathroom. You've been using it in there.
You gotta do something when you're running out of toilet
How
paper.
well you know me. It's around here somewhere.
Oh, yes.
I know. I don't have any with me up here. They're all downstairs.
That's okay. I actually did find out about this for the first time today. I was looking at it. This is an article posted on May the 20th of this year at tornightfire.com. UK release of the lavish The Best of Jeffrey Ford collection, which compiles some of his best short stories and his new novella, Out of Body, hitting the shelves this month.
It's got a great cover by my kid.
Really?
And it's illustrated by him too. Yeah.
And it's PS Publishing, right?
Yeah. And
Wow.
he's doing more stuff. He's doing another cover for them, I think, coming up.
They do great work.
Well, the book looks fantastic. I mean, it really came out great. I can't complain about it, you know.
Yeah.
But the schedule's a little, you know what I mean. You got to wait your turn until they're ready to do it, you know.
We're in the middle of the apocalypse, you know.
Yeah, right. You know. Yeah.
But it
did come out good.
It's going to contain this too.
No, that's not in there. That's a separate novella, standalone thing.
Oh, okay. All right. I missed it. I misread that. Okay. Well, before we get into that, what do you think? And any of you, John, you too, please feel free to ask Jeff questions. I really don't want to monopolize, but I'm just curious. You've got some great collections out there. The Empire of Ice Cream, A Natural History of Hell, and others. Which one do you personally have a favorite? And also, follow-up question to that: which one do you think has been the most popular so far through the years?
The most popular one so far has probably been The Drowned Life.
Okay.
It came out from a bigger publisher, you know, from Morrow, and I think it got bigger. You know, it was reviewed in the LA Times, a good review in the LA Times and other places, and it did quite well. My favorite, I don't really have a favorite. I like certain stories in them. I mean, like in Crackpot Palace, which I don't think was received as well as some of the other ones. There's a story called 86 Death Dick Road, which is one of my favorites. And Derek did the cover for that one, too. That also came out from Morrow. But that's one of my favorite stories. And Natural History of Hell has some stories in it I really like, too. Plus the old ones. Some of the stuff in the older ones, I think, is... Like, people ask me, why didn't you put them back in, you know, in the best of? But a story like The Fantasy Writer's Assistant, that story just seems so fucking dated to me. You know what I mean? So I didn't really, a lot of that stuff I just let go. I didn't really deal with it.
Yeah.
I think I probably have enough stories to do another best of collection. I don't know if they'll be the best, though. More stories.
The second best.
The second best.
That's right.
Jeffrey Ford.
The leftovers.
Well, yeah, your son does good work because I'm looking at the cover to Crackpot Palace right now.
He did that when he was in high school, that picture.
Wow.
I know. Crazy.
And the Tor Nightfire site, let's see if it says who this article writer is. Sam Reeder. I don't know who that is, but
that's a young woman. She's a
okay.
reviewer and stuff. I've seen her work before.
Well, you said one of your favorite stories is 86 Death Dick Road. It's in Crackpot Palace. She says it's the standout story. The tale of a man whose evening at a very strange bar lands him in the middle of a series of unnerving moments. It's just also not the best collection to introduce someone to Ford's work, as it goes from 0 to 60 very quickly. I'm not sure if I understand that sentence, if she's saying it is or it isn't. But
I wouldn't say it is. I mean, I was doing a lot of things with the stories back then where I was taking big chances with them and doing crazy shit just to see if I could do it. You know what I mean? So
and get away with it.
Some of them turned, yeah, right. So some of them turned out good. Like, you know, the Bottled City one, Dalthery. It's a story about a bottled city, and that came out good, and it's got a weird structure to it and so forth. But there's another one in there, The Double of My Double Is Not My Double. That one, I don't think that one went over so well.
Is that a doppelganger story?
Yeah. I liked it, but I don't know if anybody else did. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually love doppelganger stories. So.
Well, I was always on Ellen's case. Let's do a doppelganger anthology. You should do one. And she says, no, it'll be too boring and everything. But then somebody did one. I think it came out pretty good, too. I got to ask her about that when you have her on. Tell her ask her when the Doppelganger book is coming out.
I will ask her that, and I think she's watching too.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so you'll never be in another Ellen Datlow collection after that.
That might be, actually.
I'm kidding. You're a wonderful writer. Anybody would be lucky to have you. So, spoiler free, obviously, but tell us about Out of Body. It just came out it was made available like 3 or 4 days ago, right? Something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
an unusual story, and the novella length is tricky for me. It's about a guy, and he's kind of a schlub, really. So it's an unusual character. He's not kicking ass. He's not like super intelligent. He's not super cool. He's a librarian.
He even says that he's a coward. He says that to himself.
Yeah, he's a coward, and he's like, he's a guy who just is basically hiding out in life, and he runs this library in the town, which is really based on the library I went to as a kid. And in that library in West Islip, down by the tracks, it was a little like storefront thing, but over the kids section, someone had painted Sleeping Beauty, and it was a beautiful painting. You know what I mean, on this old store, and he's worried about it. This is how it starts. He's worried about it because it's falling apart. It's like, it's got the paint is structurally unsound, and he wants to have it restored, but they're closing the library in another year anyway, and they're going to just combine them into a big one in the area.
Yeah.
And it takes place on the edge of the Pine Barrens. Basically, I don't say what state, but kind of like Jersey, where I live down there, And he goes to the same convenience store every day, and he knows the girl there. She used to come into the library when she was a kid. She's a big reader and wants to go to college and so forth. And when he's in there talking to her, this guy comes in, robs the place. He says something. Actually, he doesn't even say anything. He's so scared, he basically just like farts through his mouth. You know what I mean? It makes a noise. And the guy turns around and clocks him. And he goes out cold. And just before he passes out, he hears the gun go off. He wakes up, the girl's dead. And the cops have come and killed the guy.
Yeah.
And so that's how it starts. And then what happens is, because of being hit in the head, he begins to suffer from out of body experiences, which is one of the ways that you can get it. But where you can achieve this thing is from being hit in the head. That's what what all the things say about it.
Yeah.
So he also, when he was younger, had sleep paralysis, which is kind of an entree into it, and so he suffers the sleep paralysis again and finds himself awake in this like night world. And the thing about OBE is you travel through the world, and it's not like a dream. It's the actual world that you're traveling through, but you're like a spirit, in a way. And he encounters all kinds of different creatures. And he has this, this goes on for a couple of weeks, that he has these experiences at night, and he meets somebody else in there that guides him. But through this, they discover what went on with the robbery. And it's kind of a mystery, them solving this mystery. And then the piece has like a weird dog-leg structure at the end. Near the end, it takes off in a different direction. So the beginning's very errant, where they're discovering the night world. And then the thing just like takes off in this very kind of like horrific way.
Yeah.
And I say in the beginning, my concept was I wanted to combine Peter Pan and Nosferatu in it, And so the guy is like, he's flying through the air in these dreams and so forth. And and he's like spying on people's lives. There's a lot of voyeurism in it and stuff. And then, man, it just goes really in a really wacky direction not wacky, but very tense and, brutal after that.
Well,
so I don't know if that's a good description, but that's basically, I don't want to go on any more about it.
Yeah.
No, the damn thing's only 100-something pages long. So.
Well, it's a novella. I love novellas. So a couple things.
Yeah.
A couple things I want to say. First of all, you're crackling just a bit, like you weren't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe you're not all the way plugged in or something. I don't know.
Let me see.
If not, it's not a big deal. Here's a blurb from Stephen Graham Jones. Quote, like I didn't have enough to be afraid of, now I'm never feeling alone again. So that's a nice endorsement. Getting back to the Doppelganger collection. Yeah, Ellen is watching. She says Centipede approached me about it, but then dropped it. Which,
Oh,
these
she's
things
just
happen.
trying to not take the blame for that.
Well, hey, these things happen in the world of publishing,
Absolutely.
I'm sure she would have loved to have done it if it would have worked out, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
won't speak for her. But yeah, I love doppelganger stories, so I'm going to look up that. I don't think I've read that particular story of yours. And Paul's got a great one out. Disappearance at Devil's Rock.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the previous novel to this one. No, wait, no, it's two back, right?
Yeah, it's two back. Survivor Song's coming out.
Right.
Summer, I believe.
That looks good too, and yeah, that one looks really. I just reading a kind of a review of that today, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Let me stop there. Anyone else want to throw some questions at Jeff Ford? John? Insult even? Whatever. Okay.
I know what is it I'm throwing at him? Hang on, I should have zoned out a little bit there for a while.
Okay, Jeff Ford is on the
show. What was that green shit you were drinking?
I was just like, oh yeah, Death Dick Road, right? Here we go again. Yeah. No, I really love that story.
Out of Body.
It's kind of that one. No, I blurbed Out of Body.
Yeah, him and Cisco too.
But like,
who else? Somebody else too. I can't remember who did it.
Well,
I put a knife to their throats when I see them, and
I know we were just like, all
I
right,
exact the blurbs on the spot.
Right. He was like, your blurb or your life. And
It's
like,
a bloody
all
blurb.
right. Yeah. But okay, so I actually have like a bunch of like sort of esoteric questions, because that story, like 86 Death Dick Road, which oddly I reread the other week, just I don't know, for kicks. And Out of Body, yeah, they have these kind of weird feels to them, like and I kind of wondered, I had read some like Stephen Millhauser a while ago, and I thought that, like, I kind of wondered, has Ford read this guy? Does Ford know his stuff? Because I don't know, there feels like there's some kind of connection there, and I thought, I wonder if he has. So have you read him?
Millhauser? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've read all his stories. I've read everything by him pretty much.
It would have been better if you'd just been like, no.
The only thing I haven't read by him is American Romantic.
Okay.
Which I don't have a copy of, but I even read the the one about Morpheus, which is From the Realm of Morpheus, which is I think his first novel that most people I don't think have read.
Yeah.
It goes way back. But yeah, I like his story. Some of the stories are really good. Some of them, some of the stuff he does that he's been doing more recently, like these stories where he tells you the story. I mean, like this, like there's something going on under the ground in their town. We did this and we did that. Some of those I get to be too much for me. But, the thing about, there's one story where this guy is having an affair with this other guy's wife, and the guy finds out about it and says he's got to have a meeting with him. And there's just such menace in this story. It's just a great one. I can't remember what the name of it is.
I
but
think
the
I
one
know
about
the one you mean, yeah.
the Sisters of Night, that's a really great story. And the one about the girl who disappears because nobody pays attention to her. Coleman. Her last name is Coleman in the story. I don't remember the title so well. But yeah, I've read all those stories. Eisengrim, The Illusionist, all that stuff. It's really good.
Do you look to someone like that as like I don't know, one of the difficulties, right, in writing any kind of fiction, but I feel like especially if you're writing, say, fantasy or horror, whatever, science fiction, is that, there's all these models, but they can become kind of constricting. And it's kind of nice sometimes to look at somebody who's kind of like, they're kind of playing in the same sandbox, but maybe they've got their own little corner, and Millhauser strikes me that way sometimes, that he's you can see these fantastic tropes and that sort of stuff and what he's doing, but he doesn't seem to be bound by them, and or is it just, just like, hey, he's doing his thing, you're doing your thing?
No, I mean, I'm always looking for tricks for my bag of tricks, and like things I can rip off or whatever. I think that's part of the job, really. So I'm always going through, writers. I just enjoy the way he writes, and when he's good, he's fantastic. One of the best, I think. Going today. I really like his work, and the other writers I read who are kind of like that is like Isaac Bashevis Singer. He's got all these stories that deal with the supernatural, but he's not considered really a genre writer. You know what I mean? They have a lot more. They have a lot going on in their stories beside just the supernatural part of it, and I like that about your stories as well. So that's the kind of stuff I look for.
Singer, one of the things I loved about Singer was someone pointed this out to me at one point, that like Singer has all these stories where someone knocks on the door. Like he says, someone knocked on my door and I opened the door and they were like, "Are you Singer, the writer?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "I've got a story for you." And then he goes in and he sits down and they tell him this crazy story and he's like, "Okay." And then they go away. And I love that kind of conceit, that because you're like, is it real or not?
Yeah, and he has this book. If people want to check him out, there's a story by him that'll give you an entree into these. It's called The Cafeteria, where this woman keeps telling him she sees the Nazis are down in the automat. You know what I mean? She sees them in there when she goes by. So that's just the start to the story. It takes place in New York, and most of these ones I really like are they're supernatural stories that take place after he's emigrated to New York after the Second World War and stuff, and they're really terrific stories.
Let me pause just real quick, John, and then get back to you. I'm reading the text. Jason says, "Are we going to discuss Laird Barron's doppelganger later?" I didn't know you had one. I have one, and I just found that out in the last couple of weeks. But we won't.
His actual doppelganger?
Oh, he looks amazingly like me, only better looking.
Mike, Patrick Swayze is not your doppelganger. You got to let this go.
No, it's not Patrick. It's not.
Come
Patrick
on, man.
Swayze.
It's come on, stop.
That was a dream. Everyone has. We won't use the word kindly. Told me that that's not a fact. That I don't look like him. So, all right. But Ellen Datlow, we'll have to make. We're gonna have to maybe pay her to watch every show because she's quoting invaluable things here. Here's the Karen Warren and Michael Sisko blurbs for Out of Body.
Oh, right. Karen, too. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Ellen quotes, "Out of Body is surreal, frightening, and sad. Ford's gentle librarian is the best hero I've read this year." Karen Warren, award-winning author of Tide and Stone. And then tense, vivid, eerie, with echoes of Our Town and Rear Window. Michael Sisko, author of On Language. Thank you, Ellen, for quoting those. So there you go.
Thank you.
Back to you, John.
I forgot what I was. No. No. What about that? And you'd mentioned. I'm just.
At your age, yeah.
Wow. Okay, it's going to be like that.
I can say that because you're like 1 year older than me or something.
Okay, that's enough out of you, youngster. So, what about the McCrawl? Is it McCrawl? Is that those series
McCrawl.
of stories? You've talked about those on a number of different occasions. You actually made me, like, the New York Review of Books put out like a compilation of.
That's the eye strain edition.
Yeah, exactly.
You should really get the two. You should go for the two HarperCollins versions of it. It comes in 2 books, but McCrawl is fantastic. I don't know what it is about it. It's got that South American, it's sort of like I hate to use the word like magic realism, but it's this guy who's a Gaviera, which is a lookout on a ship, and these novellas are all separate stories, and some of them are told by him, and some of them are told by others who knew him, and some of them are newspaper reports of things that happened to him. I mean, one of them is a ghost story that takes place in Vienna. He travels all over the world. And the guy who wrote it, what's his name? Oh, God. I can't remember his name now. Anyway, he worked for Exxon and traveled all over the world and, as an executive for them. He was a friend of Garcia Marquez's, and he's a poet. And I can't remember what the hell his name is, but I'll think of it in a minute. Mutiz, Alvaro Mutiz. Those stories are great. There's adventure in them. They're really well written. They're weird, too. I mean, the first one, The Snows of the Admiral, it's really hard to figure out what the hell happens in that story, but it's still alluring in a lot of ways, So they have an edge of the supernatural or the genre in them, but they are very much, I don't know, they're strange stories, like travel stories, but they got this dynamite in this cave, and they're trying to you got to look at them. They're really good. They're really good stories. I love those stories. I feel like, I always have them in the back there in case I want to read them again. I always know where they are.
Okay, let's spread it around a little bit, then John will come back to you anytime you want. Matt, you had some questions?
Yeah, okay. Now, not all of us are like big John Langan and knows everyone famous and hobnobs with everybody. Some of us, are stuck in Peoria.
Bridget
So
does.
we don't know, a lot of the viewers out here probably don't know much about you as a writer. Like, you've been writing now professionally for a very long time, but how did you get a start? I mean, where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah,
I grew up on
they
Long
really know him
Island.
from his superstar country music status, but the writing is,
I grew up on Long Island and, worked different jobs. I was a clamor. I worked in machine shops. I worked, cleaning toilets. Well, I had about 35, 40 jobs before I went to college. I worked from the time I was like 15. And I always read. I always liked to read. And I wrote, too, in little notebooks and stuff when I was growing up. And I had a lot of, I had all kinds of problems and stuff. But I went to community college. I flunked out because I was always high and drinking. You know what I mean? And then I went back and I did really well. And I went to Binghamton. And that year that I went there, John Gardner got there, the writer who wrote Grendel and the Sunlight Dialogues. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
Yeah.
But, I went to see him and I said, "Can I get into your class?" He goes, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "This was all decided like last semester. There's no way you're going to get in here because you got to wait till next year, So I was like, okay. I left his office. And as I was walking down the hallway, he came out in the hallway and said to me, "All right, come back. I'll give you a chance." And then he let me in the class. I guess, nobody else got in that way. I got in and then, I learned to write quite a bit from him. And he was good to me. He helped me quite a bit. And so then I went on from there. I went to Temple University. And, I eventually started publishing stories and, published novels with my first novel came out from Avon, The Physiognomy, my first professional novel. Some of them, I did some stuff for independent presses too. I did a novel before that one came out.
So
and then,
for any young writers out there, John, Jeff, I'm sorry, what they should first do is make sure they graduate high school, and then clean toilets, things like that.
Toilets, power press,
right.
Drink a lot,
right.
Drive around high.
I picked up garbage at one of my jobs, and then go to community college and drink a lot and flunk out.
I had I found my psychology book under a thing of beer cans and chicken bones. That's when I knew the gig was up for college. I had a scholarship too. I got a scholarship from high school.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and then I blew it. It's so stupid.
Your encounter with Gardner reminds me of how Jeff Johns, the DC Comics bigwig, how he got his start. He calls, I don't remember where he calls, but Richard Donner was there. And, director of Superman the movie. And, he calls, he wants to get a job in comics and everything or something. Yeah, I don't have this story straight. But the gist of it is, finally, Richard Donner comes to the phone and says, "Hello." So Jeff Johns starts talking to him. Next thing you know, he's got a job there,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just luck out,
Well, but you never luck out if you don't try.
No, and you have to be prepared, too, when you get your chance. This is in publishing, too.
Yeah.
I wrote for years. I wrote for years, and nobody wanted anything I wrote. And, those were some of the best times writing because I'd be in there, late at night, rubbing my hands and talking to myself, about the characters and all that. That was some of the most fun times I ever had writing, those times. And I think back fondly on them now, I want to get, I'm going to be 65 this year. I want to get back to that in a way. the professional end of it has taken me away from that to some extent. I want to get back to it.
Matt, any more?
So what? It sounds to me like you've written, like you're one of those people who won't be confined, say, to a specific genre, and kind of eschews labels of like trying to categorize a story. But like, were you always kind of writing in the fantastic?
Always liked the fantastic. I always did. I didn't always write that. I have a lot of publications from when I was in school and stuff that were literary magazines, But what happened was I was writing literary stories. I think I talked to Mike about this last time I was on, but I was writing these literary stories and these genre stories. And then it's like, the peanut butter and the chocolate. I just said, oh, fuck it. I'll put these together and see how it comes out. And that's when I started publishing. But I only published them in the genre magazines. The literary magazines wanted nothing to do with me. They had the taint of genre on them. You know what I mean? So that's why I started publishing on this side of the, of the Great Divide. If that's people perceive it, I don't. But I mean, that's what the deal is.
Well, who were the authors who you liked, who maybe would have been an inspiration to you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of writers that I like. I read all the time. But one thing that's interesting is that, and I've talked about this before, I think, but when I was going to school, right, literature was Pynchon, Angela Carter, Joyce Carol Oates, Barthelme, Gardner. These guys were all, and then at that time too, in the 70s, Garcia Marquez published in an American edition, 100 Years of Solitude. Borges was around then. And so for me, literature was the fantastic. The quote unquote mainstream lit was fantastic, So when I look out there and I don't really see the distinction between any of it, it's confusing to me that there's distinctions between this stuff, So many people I know who are big literary people and stuff like that love mysteries too. And mystery, it's, the stuff that stays around, like, thrillers and mystery writers. Everybody loves like Sherlock Holmes and those stories are, they're like mythological. They're great. Poe's mystery stories. And, so that, again, another genre that just seems literary to me in so many ways.
Yeah, I recently read, I don't know if you're familiar, I know John is familiar with John Connolly's Charlie Parker detective series. I read last year John Connolly, he won some kind of horror award for his latest book or something. And he was shocked that anyone thought of his work as horror.
Yeah.
Charlie Parker's kind of like doing what John Laird's doing a little bit with Coleridge.
Yeah, right. Those books start off. The first couple are basically mysteries, like crime stories. But then he starts to introduce these elements of the supernatural into it. And at this point, it's the same guy, and I guess you would say like the same universe, but it's all dark fantasy or horror or whatever. And good for him for doing it. But he's done it very slowly. He's kind of just. I don't know, how many books does he have? Like 15 or something like that? Or
a lot, yeah.
And so he's taken his time, but now if you read them, it's like he's, it's full on fantasy. But if you go back to the start, it's a mystery.
Well, this new one's got an atom collider in it, so
talking about Laird now, yeah.
Oh yeah,
the new one. Yeah, his new one has like a what do they call that thing that they have over in
big particle collider, like
particle collider, right? That shows up. I don't want to give anything else away.
Quote apparently. There's a quote from Laird from last week, I think, on Twitter. He said, "I think my crime fans will be happy with the new book." But the third Coleridge book, Worse Angels, but my horror fans will be even happier.
I'm 10 chapters in. It's great.
Yeah, there you go. So, just to veer off into Laird for a second, unfortunately, all these things. Putnam's publishing those. It's all about money. I mean, and the more people buy Worse Angels and the other ones, we'll get a fourth Coleridge book, which would be really nice. So
Yeah.
everyone bear that in mind. All right, more questions for Jeff Ford, guys. Anybody?
I just want to say that whenever you said Nosferatu combined with Peter Pan, I was just deeply happy in the bottom of my soul. So,
I always thought those two should meet.
yeah. I wrote something where I wanted to combine Mulan with John Carpenter's The Thing. So, brother,
That'd be great.
That's awesome.
Sometimes that's the best way to come up with a story. You have two ideas. None of them are that great. You put them together and you make a great story out of it, right? That happens like all the time.
And then sometimes there's a dud, like the Sean Connery movie League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh my God. My kid said about that movie, he's like, shit just blows up for no reason.
It's 1895, and this Rolls Royce or something pulls up to the. I was just like, okay, all the rules are out the window. I'm just gonna watch it.
I'm telling you, the opening scene is in Africa, and the stuff goes down, and then the building blows up. I don't even know why it blows up, but and then later on, London blows up, and then something else blows up later after that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of blowing up in that movie.
Yeah. Well, it's like Sharknado, right? So
well, it was based on a comic book.
I know, but the movie was
the idea, which I don't necessarily agree with, is that they were taking traditional literary heroes and villains and treating them like comic book characters, in that nobody ever dies, everybody comes back, and characters outstay their welcome.
There's actually two graphic novels. There's a second part to it too, with H.G. Wells and who else is in the second one? There's a number of people. Alan Moore stuff, right?
Yeah. Alan, the second one is War of the Worlds. They're actually more like about 5 or 6, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think he got up to I haven't kept up with the last couple, but I want to say that like more recently he's been playing like with Harry Potter or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The comics way better because
I only knew there were two
of
them.
Movie.
I didn't know what went on beyond that.
I heard Harry Potter became the Antichrist.
What?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I heard that too.
Look, I know we're living in a bizarre reality, and somebody stepped on a butterfly several years ago. But what do you mean, Alan Moore and Harry Potter is the Antichrist?
I don't know.
I
haven't
something.
You know what? From what I understand, he's just continued to do what he did to start with, which was to look around for the sort of heroes from popular fiction of the day, and then bring them all together into the League. As I recall, like in that first maybe League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, aren't there pictures of previous leagues where you see that Gulliver was in one of them or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Gulliver was Natty Bumppo and the Scarecrow of Romney Mark.
That's a great idea, actually.
But
the Scarecrow of Romney Marsh, remember those flicks?
Oh,
man,
I love that
thing was amazing. Really scared the crap out of me when I was a kid.
You can see it now on YouTube.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I've just
I'll
watched
check it out.
The books are great, by the way, by Russell Thornton.
Are they? Yeah.
1,001 uses of YouTube. Now 1,000.
And if you have the Disney DVD, you get me in a documentary for about 2 minutes.
Was that right? Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. Which movie?
Scarecrow of Romney Mark.
Ooh.
Now, can you still get the books? Are they in print, or do you have to hunt them up?
Oh no, they'll probably be in Kindle, in fact.
Right. Okay.
Speaking of Kindle, if you're listening or watching, or even both, and you're into Kindle, Jeff's new book, Out of Body, is very reasonably priced. It's $3.99. So.
Right. It's also in audio.
Yes, that's
which is unusual.
Who reads that? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, the guy is the guy who did the Ahab book, Constant. Charles Constant. He's a fantastic reader.
Okay.
They said they gave me two people, and well, he was one of them, and he did such a great job on the other book. I was like, I'll take that guy. Because the thing with audio is if I don't like the voice, I can't listen to it. I'm really picky with that. I don't know why. Like why it makes such a big difference to me.
Well,
I do listen to books on tape, though.
It does. I've had an Audible membership for like 10 years now, and I always listen to the sample first because there's some great books that they're just not well done.
Yeah.
So
It might just be the voice too. It puts me off. Like I remember trying to listen to before I read it, or after I read it, the Golden Compass, which is a book I really loved.
Yeah.
And I tried to listen to the audio. I thought maybe my kids would be into it, but I couldn't even listen to it.
Well, just real quick while we're on the subject of audiobooks, I think all you guys know that the first book Lovecraft eZine Press published, and why I got into books and not a magazine anymore. One of the reasons was this book, The Sea of Ash by Scott Thomas. Very few people had read it. Anyway, I published it, blah, blah, blah. I got a lot of attention because I thought it deserved to have a lot of attention, and then a year or so later, we had Lehman Kessler. I paid Lehman Kessler to do an audiobook version of it. And I composed a little bit of intro music and outro music, to kind of set the mood. And man, it's one of those things that you think, oh, that looks easy. You open the book and you start reading. It's not. It really is not. And I was just blown away by there's three different, shall we say, narrators in that book, three different protagonists. And what Lehman came up with for a distinct voice for the three of those guys was, it really blew me away. Another really great reader who's also a really great writer is John Padgett. Just so FYI for anybody out there, if you need a audiobook reader, John Padgett or Lehman Kessler. So,
Scott, Jeff's brother?
Yes, Scott
Oh,
Thomas.
yeah, I think I met him years ago. Yeah, I met him before.
Nice guy, very talented guy.
Both of them are.
Yeah. If you haven't read The Sea of Ash,
no, I haven't actually.
You should give it a chance.
All right.
Yeah. So actually, The Sea of Ash is only 99 cents on Kindle right now for anybody that does read on Kindle. And that's not going to last long. I'm going to switch to
my price.
Well, it's worth far more. But anyway, that's not going to last long. I'm going to put that back up to the insanely high price of $2.99 again. And
you're out of control, Davis.
I know. It comes with being a publisher. You kind of start to get drunk on this power. And you tell yourself that with great power comes great responsibility and to use it for good. But it's just too much sometimes, John.
You've gone from Spider-Man to Lex Luthor.
Right.
How many books have you published so far, Mike?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 8. I've got 3 on the plate for this year and 3 authors who are being very patient with me. Raven Degmorgan, Michael Menace, and Michael Sisko. So, yeah. So anyway, anyone else have questions for Jeff Ford? So that I'm not monopolizing everything.
I'll answer anything. Give me recipes. What do you want?
What is
how about you?
Life, universe, and everything.
Nah, forget that.
Okay.
How about you taught writing? You taught creative writing, and you've taught like at the Clarion workshop and that sort of stuff. So I don't know. What's the advice you give to there? I'm sure there are plenty of aspiring writers and beginning writers here. What's the kind of stuff that you see over and over again, and you wish you could say to them?
Well, I don't give advice basically just for the hell of it online much. I mean, occasionally I'll say something, but when I think somebody's making a real mistake, but I keep quiet about that. If somebody pays me to teach, then I'll teach and I'll give, certain things. Seriously.
Yeah,
you
yeah, no.
want my advice,
Seriously.
Lang, and you're going to have to pay for
No,
it.
it's not that. It's like, that means that they really want it.
That's a
You
good
got to
point.
really want it, because otherwise,
What about
But
a very
anyway, one of the things I tell them, you just got to be there and be typing.
yeah.
My students will tell you that. They'll also tell you that I told them, Sam Miller will tell you this. I told him, sometimes the story, it's just fucked to the core. There's nothing you can do with it. You know how they say if you got a story, you got to keep working on it and keep working on it until you get it right. I told him, that's true, but sometimes it's just fucked to the core, and there's nothing you can do with it. Throw it out and start another one.
Well, what about a variation on John's question? What advice, if you were to visit your younger self, just starting writing, would you tell him anything?
No, because what the thing is, I made my own mistakes.
Yeah.
There's so much advice online and so much bullshit. I mean, and some of the books are so complicated and full of I remember Gardner saying, all those things you think you got to do, you don't got to do them. He said, just tell a story. That's what you got to do. You got to tell a story, and you got to tell about the characters and things like that. It's a lot easier than you think it is. But what makes it hard is you think you got to be literate. You have to be all these different things. And it gets in the way of you actually telling a good story. Like most people can tell a good story,
Yeah.
but they don't think that they could be writers. And everybody, in those classes when they're starting out wants to do like metafictional techniques and like 7 different voices and all that crap, you got to cut through that and start, you got to start with something that you can actually do. I didn't take a lot of advice. Sometimes I probably should have, but I remember firing my agent, after I was in the game for a couple of years, 2 years or something. I got rid of him. But it's like, he's telling me what to write. And I thought of it as he was working for me. And him telling me what to write, forget it. I'm not doing that. I'm going to get another agent. So people thought I was nuts to do that, But yeah, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to do this and do what somebody else told me to write. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
It's good to make your own mistakes and to keep your own counsel in a lot of ways. You can learn from other people, friends and stuff like that, but I don't really, I never really listened to anybody that much. I wanted to do my own thing. There are people who have taught me quite a bit, though. I mean, Ellen's one. Between Ellen Datlow and Jen Brell, who's my novel editor, those guys really taught me how to write. I mean, Gardner gave me the basics, but those two people really taught me through their editing how to actually write, and they're both great editors. That's one of the things I tell students: always work with great editors, which is
I've seen Ellen say or type on Facebook or social media or wherever more than once about, somebody would say something along the lines of, she's just as important as the writers. And she, at least when I've seen it, has always been kind of vehemently, no, I'm not. But I think she is. It's not a job that everyone can do.
Well, for me, it's like this. The reason I work with her as much as I do is because I know what she wants. What she really wants is for you to do something amazing. It's not like she wants you. No, it's not like she wants you to do some specific thing the way she wants you to do it. She wants you to do something that you want to do. And that's what the difference is with her. You know what I mean? She's always up for something different, always up to investigate, what you've written and take a look at it. Sometimes she likes it, sometimes she doesn't. But I've done a lot of stories with her over the years, and it's always exciting. In the book she does, like this Echoes, this ghost story book, it's an amazing book. John's in that one.
And I've got an arc of final cuts that I'm really looking forward to reading. It's actually, it's not a final cover. This is an uncorrected proof, but I'm really looking forward to diving
I got
into
a copy of that.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to read through that whole book yet, but the Echoes book is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a bookstore or browsing on Amazon or wherever you buy your books, and it says edited by Ellen Datlow, just skip the title unless you already have it. Buy the book. It's going to
I
be
think
good.
a lot of people just do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of readers know that her stuff's going to be good.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, you mentioned recipes. So what's your mix for your cocktail of choice here during the quarantine?
Cocktail of choice is good. It's easy. You get some of that Bullet bourbon. You put it in a glass. You put a couple of ice cubes in and a dash of water. There's my cocktail.
Ice cubes.
I do ice cubes, yeah, because I'm old.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't do it straight.
Just real briefly, back to the writing advice. Laird and I did a Patreon podcast a couple weeks ago because we both love Chronicles of Amber so much. The Amber stories. And Roger Zelazny really is one of his major influencers. And he said that, and I think he said this elsewhere as well, but he says that Roger Zelazny really taught him something about describing characters. You do a sentence or two about what the character's like, and then if I'm paraphrasing Laird badly, but if you need to come back to him, if he's important to the story, then you add from there. He's probably going to listen to this and say, that's not what I said at all, but it was something like that. And, in other words, I think his point was don't get caught up in spending 2 paragraphs on describing, someone who isn't the protagonist.
Right. Yeah, you got to move. I mean, the early stuff I did was very florid,
Yeah.
like based on 19th century books that I had read when I was young and my dad read to me when I was a kid. And I wrote Girl in the Glass, very minimalist, and I learned a lot about how saying less is saying more in a lot of ways. And so that helps. You still want it to flow well. But yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to break up the recipe thing.
No. Please.
But no, it does occur to me like when I first became aware of your work, Jeff, I was it's like the early 2000s, and you were part of, like, to me anyway, like on the outside, I guess, you seem to be part of this bunch of writers that had suddenly like burst onto the scene, and like from the late 90s on to the early 2000s, and it was like you, and it was Vandermeer and Cisco to a certain extent, and China Mieville and Kelly Link, and like, what was your perception of that? Like, did you feel like you guys were? I know Vandermeer was, or I guess what I should say is Vandermeer always struck me as trying very hard to like sort of gather people into a movement or something like that, But like, how did you perceive it?
The whole thing is the first trilogy I wrote, which was the first real professional publication with a larger press. I mean, people talk about the new weird now, and they talk about Mieville, they talk about Jeff, and that book came out before any of them came out, and it's exactly what that is. I didn't think of it as new weird or anything. That was just the crazy shit I was writing, Yeah. So, I fit it. I guess I kind of fit into that. But Jeff was great with, he had a press, Ministry of Whimsy Press, and he was publishing like Cisco and me and some other people stories and stuff like that. I swear to God, I thought for eventually he was just going to become like a publisher.
Right.
He was really invested in publishing and that kind of stuff. I think it gave him good insight into writing and the publishing field, But then he came out with Finch, and he came out with these more recent books, which are terrific. I thought for a while that he might just become like a publisher and be satisfied with that,
Yeah.
So he was always somebody that was organizing in a way that he did. He got people involved and had and drummed up support for anthologies and stuff like that. And I published a bunch of stuff with them, with him and Anne early on. And Anne's a really good editor too. I mean, she had a magazine back in the day called Silver Web, which was beautiful. I don't know if anybody's aware of that magazine, but it's gorgeous, So,
Yeah. You were talking about the out-of-body experience. in your new novella, Out of Body. And the way you were talking about it, by the way, Melissa just came in, so hey, Melissa.
Hello.
Hey guys, yeah, I just snuck in. Hi.
That's good. It sort of made me wonder and want to ask you, unless it's too personal, your spiritual beliefs or paranormal beliefs. Do you believe that that kind of thing is possible, or are you just purely talking fiction here?
Well, I had sleep paralysis when I was a kid, when I was a teenager,
Mhm.
and man, it is really frightening. Where you
Okay.
wake up and you're awake, but you can't move your body. You're like, they hit you with the curare dart. You know what I mean? You can't move. So this is ridiculous, but this is the way it works. You think to yourself, I'm just going to concentrate on moving my big toe.
Yeah,
And
I
then you
saw
have to
that in
get
a
that-
book, and I
You
thought,
have to
man,
get that
he's
moving, and then you
experienced
can move the rest of your leg, and then the rest of your body and stuff. But when I was recently in the hospital around last time we talked, right,
it. Right.
on air, they kept wanting me to lay down flat on my back, and I kept telling them, look, I can't do that. It's too frightening for me. I can't lay back on my back because that's the position I'd be in. I'd wake up in this like paralysis because I was on my back. It's some reason and so I always sleep on my side. So I had that, going into the book. And then the out of body experience stuff. I don't know how much I buy it, but what the hell? It's good. It's a good I think it's a good device. I wouldn't doubt that people have these things. I love reading about stuff like that. I mean, that's the breakfast of champions right there.
Yeah.
I have these sites that I read every day where I get story ideas that talk about stuff like that, unusual things. Graham Hancock, that nut job, and these other ones. I have I jot down story ideas off those sites. I check them every day after I read the news. And so once in a while they pay off in silver dollars, it pays off.
Yeah, there was this book called Stranger Than Science that came out, I think, in the 50s, and I was a kid.
I remember it.
You do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know how fascinating it is then. Especially, I found it in a DAV or a thrift shop or something, when I was a kid, probably early 80s. And I was like, oh my God, this book is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
It's scary too.
Yeah.
That one where people disappear, but they can still hear their voices calling for help. Like there was one doctor who stepped off a curb and completely disappeared. Like people saw him blink out.
Right.
But when they gathered over to the spot, they could hear his voice crying out for help from wherever that.
Yeah, months and months later, his kids could hear him crying from somewhere in the ground, and then he faded away forever. Which reminds me of what's his name, David Paulides. I don't know if you guys recognize that name, but there's a lot of really weird disappearances. There's an article at, sorry, I don't remember if it's Tor or Salon. It's from several years ago, and the title of the article is "Never Be the Last in Line." Like a movie theater, bar, whatever. And he investigates people who just you turn around and they're gone forever. The point is, I found out later, when that new internet fad came into existence, that a lot of those stories just weren't true. But the point is, they were fascinating and they're great idea material.
It's great fodder for stories. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another one. I mean, I experienced this actually. This thing about dimes, where you find dimes all over the place.
Really?
Look this up on Google when you get a chance. I'm not the only one that's had this experience. One day I came in, my father-in-law was into this, and he told me about it, that he had been finding dimes, right? He passed away. I thought about it one day, and then a couple of weeks later, I come into my office, and sitting on my desk here, there are 3 dimes from 1930 something. The same year, these 3 old, where they have the torch and stuff like that. And I'm like, where the hell did this come from? They were all from the same year. Now go and look it up on Google. This happens all over the world.
Now see, this is how you know you're in a simulation.
Exactly.
When shit like this.
The hologram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like the dime thing, but I would rather find $100 bills everywhere.
Well, that's the thing.
That would be great. Yeah.
I'm working small change here.
No, it was a thing though. I remember after my dad died in the early '90s, my mother and my sisters kept saying that they for whatever reason, and this was really pre-internet, but somehow they got it into their heads that this was him talking to them.
Yeah,
and or just sort of reassuring them, letting them know that And man, it wasn't that seems like it wasn't that long ago. The writer John Crowley was asking about that. He said, "Man, people have been telling me about this, and where does this come from?" And I thought, man, my family went through that, but I honestly don't know where did it originate.
Yeah, there's something about that when you turn your attention to the unknown like that. It gets a little scary sometimes. I'm not saying that I believe in all this stuff, but there are times when if you open yourself up to it, it'll show you something. You know what I mean? It'll scare you, or it will do something that is unusual. I've had that experience. I hope I don't sound too crazy for saying it, but I've had that experience.
I've had weird things happen to me, and I'm an atheist. I'm not a Richard Dawkins atheist where I think I need to go around telling everybody how wrong they are about religion. I just basically, it comes from, okay, if there's evidence of a God, when I see it, I'll believe. I don't believe in stuff. I look for evidence. If you tell me the moon's made out of green cheese, that's fine with me if you can prove it, to use a really ridiculous example.
I see you're part of the anti-green cheese moon conspiracy, Davis.
Yes. I was hoping I wouldn't let that slip out in an interview one day, but it's too late now.
I have an interest in religion. I have an interest in it, but I'm not religious, really. I still read books about, by Elaine Pagels and different books about religion, but I'm not religious, really. And I went to church when I was a kid and all that, but it's that was just such a drag,
Well,
they had to make it more fun. If it was more fun, I might have been into it. But man, it was slow and bad singing, and that incense and shit. Forget it. I had to get out.
I have a friend, Larry, that I've known since I was a kid, and a couple years ago he thanked me for. He goes, years ago you told me something that I thought was pretty stupid at the time, and now I realize that it's helped me a lot. And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "It's okay to say when something weird happens, not to leap to either conclusion. It's okay to just say, I don't know the answer."
Yeah, because then you're open to, and you might find out if you keep an open mind to it, right, instead of being deluded by it or just pushing it out of your mind. But I find the older I get, the more there's weird stuff that goes on that you can't explain. I'm telling you,
it's
stuff I see.
That might be Mad Cow.
It probably is. All those burgers.
Yeah.
Since I'm a Catholic from Long Island, that's paid. Where in Long Island did you grow up?
West Islip. You know where it is?
That's in Suffolk, right?
South Shore, yeah. Why? Where'd you grow up?
Bethpage.
Bethpage, yeah. I remember it.
So was Suffolk the rough part of Long Island then?
No. Rough? Not particularly. I mean, it really wasn't rough at all. It's rougher now than it was back when I went there. I lived there. We were at the beach all the time.
You're not doing this right, Jeff. You're supposed to talk about your hard life on the streets and all these.
Listen, when I went to the when I won the Edgar and I went to the Mystery Writers thing,
Yeah.
There were all these guys there, and they were showing me their websites, and they're all like this, leaning against chain link fences and shit. You know what I mean? With the tattoo over here, and you meet them, and they're just a bunch of old schlubs like me.
I remember one time, I forget which convention it was. I think it was one of the film festivals. So Lehman Kessler and I are at this one hotel. It's nice. I don't remember which city it was. I don't remember which hotel it was, but we were all divided into two hotels. So Lehman and I are at this nice one. I was like, let's go walk over, see Nick Gucker and the rest of these guys that are over there. And Lehman's like, okay. And we get halfway there, and I'm like, It's kind of a rough area. He goes, yeah, that hotel's kind of murdery. And I just burst out laughing. Like, I've never heard that phrase before, but okay.
Was it actually murdery?
It was daylight, but it looked like one of those places where you didn't want to go after dark. And Nick Gucker, the nicest guy in the world, I walk in and he's throwing something all the way down the hallway. So I don't know what that was about. And I
lived in a motel for like a couple of years.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So I mean, this was a motel where they came and went, and it was a student housing for a while, but then the other part was just regular people that came. It was not what I would call a high class joint, you know. Very strange stuff going on there.
Okay.
See, I think it's really cool for you to, just say, no, I'm literally just a dude who just grew up anywhere, because that means that everybody potentially has all these amazing, stupefying worlds inside of us, and we should all just share them, even if we're just dudes.
Well,
so I think that's great.
I think a lot of people have good stories to tell. I mean, one of the places I get stories is when I go out in public or whatever. I always just like, unless I'm there with my friends or something talking, I usually just sit back and listen to what people have to say. And you hear the greatest stuff. Even a line can give you an idea for a story, I remember there was a guy who used to walk around South Philly when I lived there who used to murmur all the time, the rain does things like that. The rain does things like that, and that's a great line. I use that in a story. I just, you hear everything like that. You hear stories, overhear stories.
Now, do you write down, when you to say sit out and get hear something like that, do you write it down somewhere, or do you just keep it in your memory for later?
I never write anything down.
Oh, wow.
I always just, what my feeling has always been, and this does me dirty now because I'm old and I can't remember a damn thing, but it's like, I just used to if it didn't stick in my head, I figured it was useless. So my novels, all of that stuff, I never wrote notes or anything, and none of that stuff. I just wrote them out of my head onto the thing and never did any. I mean, I know people who do a novel and put up butcher paper with lines on it and characters. There's actually a girl in this book that does that. There's writing on her room, on the walls. You know?
I like that. I like that part. I read that.
But I never did that. But now it might not be a bad idea because I can't remember crap now. I'm old. And it probably would help me. But I refuse to give in. Rage.
I think I'm sorry, just different, right? Because didn't Lovecraft, I think that is published, he had a commonplace book, and I think even they said J.K. Rowling would write just different people's names and things like that.
Oh,
I feel if I wrote, I would just have a hard. I have a horrible memory. I think I need to write things down. So I'm very impressed that you could remember all. You know what I mean? Just pick that stuff up, that you see and hear, and then just
Well, what the good part of it is if you can keep it in your head. Yeah. Then when no matter what you're doing, you go to the grocery store, you're picking out melons. The story's going in your head. It's mixing, and and it's all up there, and it's constantly working itself and working things out in the story. Because you got it all in your head. You wrote nothing down. And so, it has a tendency to work itself out. When you do it, I'd be driving around, go to the gas station, waiting for my brakes to get fixed. All that time, I'm working the story in my head. I don't need any papers. I don't have to have my notes with me or anything like that, It worked out well for me. I don't suggest that everybody do it, but I know that there are people who take notes and all that stuff. It's worthwhile.
That's a really good point, though, Jeff. I had never thought about it that way. I use I've got Google Keep on my smartphone, so it's this mess of virtual sticky notes and stuff like that that I can always access. And
I've been using that more often, Mike. Yeah. I have something like that I actually use now, so I don't completely forget everything.
Yeah. I forget why I was going to bring this up, but we were talking about writing. It made me think of Robert McCammon's introduction to Boy's Life, and he talked about when he started writing as a kid. He said he was writing, and he spelled it. He wanted to create his own world, so he was writing. RIGHTING. That part of that introduction has always stuck with me. And such a cool way to look at it. He was basically saying, You know, if I created a world, this is what it would be like. You know,
Right.
which of course he did with Boy's Life and other books. Boy's Life is one of the best books ever written, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to make things right in his own mind. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's not about like what happened. It's about what should have happened.
yeah, which makes me think of the recent movie with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. I won't give anything away, but it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Have you guys seen that?
I
Yeah,
saw
so
that.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about the ending.
It's
about the whole movie, because
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's once upon a time. So people were upset with a lot of aspects of that movie, but, you know, they don't realize that this is not the way things happen, but the way things should have happened.
Right.
And so they didn't get the inference from the title. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of what?
I was just going to say Leonardo DiCaprio is the lead, but really Brad Pitt is the coolest character in that movie. You know, him jumping up the fence to the roof, and you know,
Right, yeah.
the people that invade his house, and he's just like drunk, and he doesn't even give it a second thought, and then he goes and sicks the dog on him, and then I don't want to ruin it, but then Leo comes out with, oh my God, if you haven't seen the movie, you got to see the movie, and forget reality, just watch the movie. You know,
I think it's worth it. It's kind of like a return to like classic Tarantino. I really thought it was just so well done, and you could like enjoy it on a few different levels, like just as a fun action movie, or you know, like a Once Upon a Time retelling. Like it was just like it was really good.
Yeah.
I loved it, but I also found it heartbreaking because of that
Yes.
wish fulfillment aspect of it. That, you know, because I was actually really afraid of what I thought Tarantino might show us.
Yeah.
And
Which
and
is
what
a
we
valid
get
fear with Tarantino.
Yeah. And what we get instead is right. It's wonderful. It's like, oh my God, why couldn't this have been? But there's something. I mean, I think it's one of his best films. But there is something about what he does at the end there that just it makes it really poignant. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and besides, it's got a flamethrower. You know,
It has flamethrowers all over the place.
That was the best part.
Yeah,
Like
so-
Anybody for fried sauerkraut?
if you
Die,
haven't,
you Nazi bastards! Die!
We're not giving too much away here.
That's the
I don't
early
wanna
part
give
of the movie.
anything away,
The,
but if you haven't seen the movie, it's got a flamethrower. Okay, just
He loves
watch it.
burning Nazis. Yeah.
the fictional actor in that was based somewhat on Burt Reynolds. In fact, the FBI episode that you see on television originally starred Burt Reynolds instead of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, he was really before he died.
No, I mean that's a real. He was, in fact, Burt Reynolds was. He was in that FBI episode, the real one that they just inserted Leonardo DiCaprio to do Burt Reynolds' lines.
Right.
Oh wow.
And also, Burt Reynolds was originally going to play the part that Bruce Stern played, except that Burt Reynolds died. And this one last thing, the actor-stuntman relationship was based on Tony Curtis and his good friend, stuntman Dave Sharp, who used to stunt double for him.
Yeah. All right. I've got a few other topics, but before I go there, two things. Number one, does anyone have any other people any of you have any other questions for Jeff Ford? And Jeff, please, speaking of memory, jog my memory. The last time I had you on the show was about
2 years ago.
Yeah, it was about another novella. Those kids who.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember. The Twilight Pariah.
But
Yeah.
there was another one.
Another one?
Well, we also talked about the Captain Ahab novel a lot.
Yeah, I did talk about that. Ahab's Return.
No,
what
it was
we
about
talked
these
about?
kids who are going to this house to excavate some stuff or something.
Yeah, that's the Twilight Pariah.
It's the one based on your childhood.
Oh, that's the Twilight. I was thinking of the Shadow Year. I'm sorry.
It's
Yes.
they dig up the. You wanted to talk about the Shadow Year? That's an older one from like 2009 or something.
Yeah, Twilight Pariah is great.
They dig up the toilets, the old like outhouses.
Yeah.
You know, somebody else I just saw has a story out now about night soil. That's the same idea. That's from these privy divers that they call them that excavate these things, the night soil. You know when you're going to get to the good stuff when you hit that. You know, when you're digging, because that's at the level where all the stuff fell in the toilet.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I told you then, and I'm going to tell you again that the Shadow Year, to me, ranks right up there with Boy's Life, Summer of Night. It's just, it's a great novel. I really love it.
Yeah, that one is somewhat about my childhood. Yeah, that is from back in the day.
Yeah, I
it was fun. It was fun writing that. You know, when I started writing that, I couldn't like remember a lot of stuff, and I just did this thing where I sat. This is a technique that might help people actually. I just sat for 15 minutes every day for a week, and I tried to remember things. And by the end of that week, it was just an enormous flood of images and people saying things and stuff that I completely forgotten about. Like it's like one thing led on another, you know, and then that I think helped me make the novel richer, you know, with those memories and stuff like that. But that technique, I wasn't thinking of it as a technique. I was just really trying to remember stuff. But give it 15 minutes a day if you want to write about something in the past. Give it 15 minutes a day, and you'll remember things that you never remembered before about it. And not only that, but you'll see connections between them too. And it'll start coming like fast and furiously, like a flood after a while, you know?
I think
that was just my experience, yeah.
I think that's very valuable advice. Thank you.
Probably really good for your brain too. It's like brain exercise.
Get
like
rid of the mess.
All those memories. Like, you know, it's probably like good. It's like
the dark side of the moon. That's where Pope says in Rape of the Lock, all things that are lost reside on the dark side of the moon.
So the title of Jeff's newest novella is Out of Body. It's also available on Kindle. I very much enjoyed it. So did Stephen Graham Jones, Karen Warren, Michael Sisko, and others whose opinions that I deeply respect, all kidding aside. So read that. Again, I've talked about the Shadow Year. If you've not read the Shadow Year, don't walk to your computer and get it mailed to you or whatever.
Buy early and often.
Yes, buy early and often. And keep your gifts small but expensive. And PS Publishing has a collection, The Best of Jeffrey Ford, coming out at some point this year, if I understand.
It's out. You
it's
can get
out.
it on. They had some trouble like getting it on, in the States.
Yeah,
it's on Amazon now.
I would assume that that's not Centipede. It's PS Publishing, right?
Yeah, PS. It's on Amazon now, and they run out of stock and then they restock. So if it's not there, wait a week or two, and they'll have more of them there. You know?
But I think they were trying to get some of their books on Kindle too. Did they do that with this one?
No, that's a possibility in the future. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. You know,
well, and they really are a wonderful, wonderful publisher. They're not. But they're not in the States. So I think a Kindle version of their books would help them a lot. Would also open up their catalog to a lot of people who've not, been able to read those books. I mean, postage is expensive.
It is. And I'd really like to see eventually like a paperback copy of this collection come out from somebody, or from them if possible.
Yeah.
But it was fun to work on. My kid was living with us at the time, and he was there for a couple of months, and we'd work on it at night. And I'd tell him he'd say, tell me what's in this story I have to draw a picture for, and I'd tell him and he'd draw it,
All right. Is there anything coming next before we move on that you can talk about yet? Besides,
I just have something in the final cut thing with Ellen.
Yeah.
And I have a story coming out in Conjunctions. That's Grendel's Children, I think it's called, that issue, and it's about monsters. And I just have a story came out. Anne Vandermeer had a piece that was had an anthology called Avatars, where we wrote stories about this one avatar who has survived through all these centuries and is used again and again. And it's the history of this avatar, all different writers, Ken Liu and I think Cory Doctorow's in there, and a bunch of other really good writers are in that one too.
Well,
and that just came out. You could get that for free online, actually.
What's that
free.
called?
Nice.
It's called Avatars Inc. It's through the X Prize.
Okay.
Avatars Incorporated, I think it's called.
Google is your friend. Okay, we're going to have Ellen on July the 12th.
This one quite.
Yes, please, Rick. Go ahead.
Does Grendel's Children pay homage to Don Gardner's version of Grendel?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know, because I just wrote a story that has nothing to do with. It's called Monster 8, and I don't know what the range of the other stories are. I know it's coming out soon from them, and it's got a cool cover on it, but I don't think it really bears any has anything to do with Gardner. I think it's just that idea of that. But what's her name? Maria Headley has a new translation of Beowulf out. Yeah, and her last novel also dealt with it as well.
I just rewatched.
Those are really good books.
A few weeks ago, I rewatched The 13th Warrior. What a great one.
Mike, I just watched that recently too.
Did you
myself.
too?
I volunteered to watch it. Yeah. Antonio Banderas says, an Arab.
Yeah.
In the North Country.
And he's kind of cowardly, and at the end, towards the last third of the movie, someone says to him, "You could die," and he's retaining the attitude of the other 12 guys, and he's like, "It's possible," So
he gets a Viking's broadsword and takes it over to a grinding wheel turns it into a scimitar in a bat of a fucking eyelash. I'm telling you, that guy's some grinder.
Yeah, I know, but it was still a good scene.
It was a good scene.
That movie is based on a book by Michael Crichton called Eaters of the Dead.
Eaters of the Dead, yeah.
Yes, Eaters of the Dead.
It was a good flick.
Yeah,
it was a good flick, yeah.
Speaking of final cuts,
enjoyed it.
Like I said, Ellen's going to be on, what did I say, July 12th? Yeah, July 12th. Final Cuts, New Tales of Hollywood Horror and Other Spectacles is going to be available in Kindle, audiobook, and looks like paperback. Ellen Datlow is, of course, the editor. You mentioned you have a story in it. So does Stephen Graham Jones, Josh Mallerman, Laird Barron, Gemma Files, Brian Hodge, other people.
Langan. Langan.
Sorry. Wait. Sorry. What was that?
Okay, never mind. I was about to recommend this, but yeah, no, Langan's a wonderful writer. Nathan Ballingrad too. Yeah, I've not mentioned everybody. It's available on June the 2nd, which I realize is coming right up, but it really helps editors, publishers, and writers if you go ahead and pre-order, So I always try to mention that.
Also, here's a little bit of trivia.
Yes.
About the story that I wrote for Ellen. So at a certain point,
I have to read the story now, or you can't?
No, you can skip the story now.
Okay,
so at a certain point, I realized that I had written, I think, 3 stories at this point about Laird, just accidentally, over the years. I was like,
as we all do, yeah.
As we all do, right? And I thought to myself, man, I'm very good friends with Paul Tremblay, and I thought I've never written anything about Paul, and I thought I should do that, And so this is the result of that: 25,000 words of horrible things happening to Paul Tremblay. So if, maybe that's an incentive for some of you, depending on how you feel about Paul.
So yet again, you wrote a novella for a short story collection.
And
I did an intro for one of John's books, like his The Wide Carnivorous Sky.
Yeah.
I remember saying in it, he gives good weight.
I think what you actually said was, the guy isn't in any hurry.
He's not in any hurry, and he gives good weight. Those were the two things I had to say.
Oh, Ellen just commented, late and long.
Oh, for God's sake.
But it's worth the wait. They're great stories.
No,
great stories.
He was in a book I edited, and it was long, and it was late, and it was worth every fucking day I waited for it. That is one hell of a story.
It cost you a lot, though, in those leg breakers you sent around to intimidate me. I mean, because then I had to put them up because they were like, I was like, one more day, guys, one more day. So they stayed in the spare.
I think you're referring to Laird, because at one point I had to email Laird and say, can you move him along a little bit?
And he was like, he's just writing one big paragraph, Mike. Come on.
He's on the third word. Give him time.
That's a good idea for a story. The leg breakers having to live with you. That's awesome.
I like that idea that they're just in the side room and they come out, and they get coffee every now and again.
You got to do that. That's good.
Laird just gave an interview for where, John, where he talks about this part-time leg breaker invited his dad to go with him.
Oh, yeah. Man, I it's funny because I saw that interview and I don't remember exactly. Was it the thing he wrote for Putnam? He wrote like a little essay for Putnam about the new book. I think maybe that was it. But yeah, I remember that story. All those stories are false. Laird's actually from New Jersey.
He's from suburbia.
Yeah, he's in Paramus. He grew up in Paramus and just.
Yeah, it's like, you remember Vanilla Ice, right? He grew up on the street.
Whoa, let's not get crazy, okay?
Well, I wrote a thing on Facebook one day about this guy showed up in my driveway out here in the sticks in Ohio, and he was selling meat out of his car. And I was like, man, that's something I don't want.
No.
But Laird wrote, and he said, I lived on that stuff for like a long time. I bought a ton of those steaks, and I'd eat them before they went too bad.
I hope so. I'm looking it up now. It's on crimereads.com. Noir fiction when the real is too raw. And here's a great quote from it. I'll let you guys Google it. But Laird Barron writes about, quote, leg breakers, Alaskan hardmen, and writing toward a piece of the truth. Here's a quote from him from the article. And I love this. You don't need to crawl across to Dune to know the desert's out there, gnawing and growing. It made me think of, and I won't pretend to know what's inside Laird's brain, John, probably you do, but I just loved desolation, desolate scenes, places like, obviously from Laird's point of view, Alaska, or the desert, West Texas and westward and so forth. And also reminds me of, I'm from Iowa, Iowa in the winter, and all these fields that are just real high with corn during the summer, and you drive through these roads past these fields in the winter, and it's just nothing but
it's bleak.
It's bleak. It's very bleak.
Yeah, we get the same thing here, like that around where I live. We have fields and stuff, and it all looks so good in the summer, and then when the winter comes, it really. I remember my kids saying to me when we first moved here. The next day, we went out looking for gas, and it's like all these fields. It hadn't snowed yet, but it was all this like it's stubble in the fields, and there was smoke floating over them or mist. And he said, thanks for bringing me to live in the game Fallout.
But see, I'm weird because everybody, they'll drive past those in the summer and they'll be like, oh, that's so beautiful. Look at all that corn. And here's another field that they're growing beans and everything. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay, I guess. We got to eat.
I actually know because my dad has a story about that. He grew up in Iowa.
Yeah.
He almost died Like, I know it sounds like everything everybody else says, but he literally almost died walking to school during the winter in Iowa.
Wow.
Now, thankfully, he has like a bajillion brothers. So 2 of them carried him to a house that had a star on the side of it. Because apparently back in the day,
Yes.
ladies would put like a star on the side of their house if they like knew some nurse and stuff or whatever and helped people.
Or it was safe
So-
for a kid who had been abducted and got free. You're safe to come here, that kind of thing.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they took him to, they carried him into a house like that. And the lady basically, you know, thawed my dad out. But yeah, he's told me all about it. So I believe you, man.
Yeah, no, I almost died too. It was like 1990. I was 19, and at the time, my parents were living in New Virginia. This town is like 30 minutes south of Des Moines. But it was the middle of winter, and this piece of shit car I was driving drove it just halfway there, gave out. And I'm talking, it was like midnight, and there was nobody going by. And I thought, okay, this is it. I had a good run. It's been 19 years. And finally a cop showed up, took me home. And I just remember he put me in the front seat, and I'm just going, I'm like, dude, can you turn up the heat? And he's like, I'm boiling here. I'm like, yeah, I know, but. So, yeah. But, you know, I drive past those desolate fields, and I'm like, oh, man, this makes me happy. This cheers me up. You know, everybody else,
if you want to read a story that really captures that effect, that country kind of thing with the winter,
yeah,
there's a story by William Gass called The Peterson Kid, which is a horror story, really. And it really captures that whole thing of winter and like having to thaw somebody out and everything. It's a creepy ass story.
Yeah.
But it's all about desolate and snow, you know?
Well, yeah, like I said, the book is Out of Body, and it's available in print, Kindle, and at Audible. So please do check it out. And I can't also say enough about The Shadow Year. If you haven't read that, please read that too, and Jeff's other works. Okay, I just want to mention that Rick and Matt Carpenter and Pete Rollick and I the other night did a Patreon podcast that I've not yet put the audio up at Patreon. And I'm listening to these guys, and after about 15 minutes, I'm thinking, if I actually had money, I would pay $100 to listen to this stuff. It was amazing, Rick. And I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. You guys are so knowledgeable. I mean, even Matt had something meaningful to contribute. And oh, Matt, are you still here? I'm sorry. No, he.
Wait,
really,
is that sexy Matt Carpenter you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, then it's not me.
No, it's not. But it's this Matthew Carpenter. So anyway, it's really, really, really good. And I wanted to do it, in honor of our friend Joe Pulver. And we did talk about Joe a bit, but we talked about what Joe loved. The King in Yellow, Carcosa, those 4 central stories by Chambers, and these guys gave me a lot of recommendations, and and to the audience a lot of recommendations on other books with similar themes that you can read, stories, TV shows, things like that. Like, John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns is one example. Gemma Files' experimental film is another example. Not that you would say, oh, Gemma Files wrote a King in Yellow book. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it was in that same sort of mood / theme, whatever. So the point is, I'm going to have that up on the Patreon list in a couple days. And Patreon podcasts, they only cost $5 a month. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's going to be up. The last one was with Larry Barron, and we probably got, I think the Patreon's been up for 2 years, so we probably got another, I don't know, maybe another 30 Patreon podcasts. They're typically just audio, so you can listen to them on the go and so forth. So, really thank you for the patrons for keeping me going. Thanks to the people who are hitting that paypal.me address in the synopsis here and contributing. Okay, so that little commercial said, Rick, you said the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society has a new audio drama out.
Oh, they do.
The Whisperer in Darkness.
Okay. Is it good?
Yeah.
Is that new?
I mean, they had done a movie version.
That's right.
And for that reason, they never did an audio drama.
Okay.
And what they do in the audio drama, since it was mainly letters and narration, they give Professor Wilmouth this photographic cylinder device where he's making notes for his secretary, and he decides to give a similar device to Henry Akeley, so they're communicating back with cylinders, so you get the vocals.
Oh, that sounds worth it.
Yeah. Okay. Who here, we won't give away spoilers, but who here has seen The Vast of Night already? It dropped
the first half hour.
Yeah, you fall asleep. I know.
No, it's not the movie's fault. It's not at all. I want to watch the end of it tonight.
Yeah, the Vast of Night, it dropped on Amazon Prime a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
Anyone seen it?
I have.
No, but we're planning it for movie night next week.
Who said they
I'll watch
have?
it again on movie night. I have, but I'll watch it again on movie night.
What did you think, Bridget? I got to grab something. I'll be right back. You talk.
Okay. I thought that it did a great job of capturing the time period and the technology of radio and the switchboards and stuff. And so I don't think it's giving too much away to say that she's working the switchboard after school and hears a weird noise and calls her friend who works the radio station, said, hey, you were doing this radio show and this weird noise came out. And he went, really? And so she plays back the noise, and that just kind of sets off a whole series of events of trying to figure out what's causing this noise and what's happening. And it was really great perspective of the teenagers, just trying to figure out what's going on while like pretty much the rest of the town is at this basketball game.
Right.
Wait a
one
second.
of the things
Bridget, are
What?
those two little feet sticking out on the top of that shelf up there?
No, these are PS4 controllers.
Oh, okay. All right. Look like two little feet or something.
This whole podcast, that question's been bothering Matt. I just want to say.
That's what he hones in on.
Exactly.
One of the things at the beginning of that movie was where that girl has a personal tape recorder. Like, I don't think you guys remember this, but I remember those days when that was a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this perceived power in it, that she was afraid to touch the thing when she first got it. She was asking the other guy to show her how to do it. But, I mean, there was this perceived power and this strange, sensibility that this technology was, imbued with some kind of power or something. They capture that in the movie in the beginning very well, with that little tape recorder where they're pushing the buttons on it and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't alive in the 50s, but I had when I was a little kid, I had one of those cassette recorders.
Right.
Because I was like late 70s, early 80s, and one of my things I used to do was go around to family members and be like, what's your name? And they would make up some name. My name is Brunhilde. And I'd be like, oh, Brunhilde, what's your favorite color? And we'd do like this whole interview thing. So there was kind of like a little nostalgia, even for me, even watching that as she's figuring out how to use that recorder and talk. Can I talk in the mic? Oh, I'm just practicing or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
That was great.
Well, some of us have controllers, and I want to say something about the Vast of Night, but before I do, some of us have controllers on our, behind us, to the right of us, and then others seem to have endless. What is that? Stoker Awards there, Jeff?
Oh, that's my Howard Lovecrafts. Those are my World Fantasy Awards. That's some of them.
Yes.
There's another one over here. That's the new one. I put that by itself over here.
Yeah.
That's where they've been for the years. I just throw them up there when I get them, and they collect dust up there.
Yeah.
Looking over my shoulder. I don't see myself though, so
I
It's
am
not a
really
problem.
happy that I didn't compliment you on your Easter Island head sculptures like I was planning on earlier.
Well,
Stole my line.
I was a Shirley Jackson finalist, and all I got was I need a T-shirt that says I was a Shirley Jackson Award finalist, and all I got was this lousy rock.
Listen, the rocks are the coolest thing.
Everybody loves the rock.
The rock is way cooler than the award. Actually,
it's just something funny to say. Here's the rock. You can't read.
They're
it.
awesome. Yeah, I love the rock.
2016 Shirley Jackson Awards.
Well, I can tell you that we have been talking for a while on the Jackson board about trying to maybe do something with the actual award itself, beyond, at first it was just like what we could afford and
cool.
that sort of stuff. But there's talk about maybe trying to go the next step with it.
Well, don't mistake me. I'm just cracking a joke.
Also, I'll need Davis. I'll need your rock back for those remarks. Okay.
Oh shit. Okay.
That's why you noticed I jumped in and said how cool the rock is right away.
Do I just?
I just like the idea that Jeff has like this little Easter island behind him.
That's what I was thinking. I was like,
I got the other stuff over
there.
My pile
Easter
of rocks.
Island, or did you win those?
Right. So I'm thinking there's a story, right? The guy who's got like this little Easter Island in his office, and what are you doing with those Easter Island statues?
Well, in Lovecraft,
listen, you know what? I'm not a big fan of Love. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rick. I'm not a big fan of Lovecraft by any means. I told you guys that.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm not a fan of Lovecraft as the man. I like.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, I love the sculpture that Graham, what's his name?
Gahan Wilson.
Gahan Wilson did for those things. It cracks me up. It's funny as hell. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
If you've read Lovecraft's Dream Quest of Unknown Canaann, you remember there's a point where Randolph Carter has to find the image of the gods of Kadath on the mountaintop. If you read the description of the face of the gods, it's Lovecraft's face.
Really?
Yeah, I never noticed that before. I'm gonna have to go back and read that. That's interesting.
No, he may have bottled it on Easter Island, and he just happens to look like Easter Island as well.
He did.
You have a face for Easter Island. Yeah.
You have a voice for radio and a face for Easter Island.
The same imagery pops up in Robert E. Howard's The House fragment. It's also known as The House in the Oaks.
Well, it happens also in the Fall of the House of Usher. The guy who's described as Roderick is actually Poe. He has the hair has a web-like tenuity and an expanded brow. This nose, this thin nose, and like the basic old Poe light bulb head is what he's describing as Roderick. So basically, it's a story about Poe inside the drama that takes place inside Poe's head.
Well, getting back to the Vast of Night.
Sorry.
No. We go off on tangents all the time on this show. Getting back to the Vast of Night. First of all, please take my advice if you've not seen it. Do not watch the trailer. Do not read any reviews about it. Do not read any articles about it. Just watch the movie. My second piece of advice is to watch it after dark, preferably late at night.
Like, for example, this Saturday on eZine Movie Night.
Very true. Kelly watched it, and I'm quoting now, Mike is predisposed, it's been too long of a day, to like this kind of movie. You know what I'm trying to say. This is everything you love, Mike. It's not a Lovecraftian movie at all, but certain parts of it reminded me of it. There's one character, she says free will isn't possible, and I'll leave it at that. But the cinematography is just nuts. Bridget, you said you saw it, right? It's just
yeah,
it is.
How about that whole tracking shot in the beginning where you're following them down the street? I mean,
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then they go through.
I was impressed by that.
Yeah, they go through the basketball game, and then they're out the other end, and then to the radio station. I don't want to say too much, but damn, I really can't recommend that movie enough. It's really, really good. And I'll also say this: I don't want this to come out as, I don't know, elitist or whatever, but this is not a jump scare movie. This is the kind of movie where if you have imagination, it's going to get to you. If you don't, you're going to be like, okay, this happened, so what? But I think it's great. I'm not always a big fan of Rotten Tomatoes, but sometimes it's a good baseline, and it's got last I looked, it has a 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
The characters establish themselves really quickly in the beginning too, really well.
Yeah. And they're pretty unique characters.
Yeah.
I'm expecting the guy played by Jake Horowitz to be like this nerd. Well, he's not really. He's like, everybody comes to him with problems.
Yeah.
You see that right at the beginning of the movie. He fixes everything for everybody. So, which is why the girl comes up to him and says, "Show me how to use this tape recorder."
Yeah.
He goes, and the first time she says it, he's like, "I have no idea what you're saying. You sound like a chipmunk. Come down here." So, it's just a really good movie. I highly recommend it. And please watch it after dark and go into it completely blind, if at all possible. So I really love the movie. Anybody else want to say anything about The Vows tonight before I move on?
No, but I have to go now, so I just want to emphasize our prize. If you enter, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com, put Ancestor in the title, and you'll be put in the drawing for this book. We'll have the drawing in about 2 weeks or so you got plenty of time to send in an entry.
It's Ancestors and Descendants, edited by...
The editor is Hale, Coyne.
Okay. Lovecraftian book, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Matt. Have a good night.
Bye.
Take care.
Hi, Matt.
See you, Matt.
Books coming up. We've got SP. These are either coming out or are out. SP Muskowski, The Best of Both Worlds. I don't know if anyone's read that yet.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Okay,
she is such a good, just at a sentence by sentence level. She is such a great writer. I think I read it. It's relatively short. I read it in 2 hours, but sometimes you're reading something that's just like a pure pleasure to read it. You're just like, man, this is the good stuff. This is so good.
And she's world building. It's set in her town of Skillet, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
It's
a sequel to the previous one, The Worst Is Yet to Come. And it wouldn't. That's also very short. It wouldn't hurt to read. If you haven't read it, read The Worst Is Yet to Come, and then go right into The Best of Both Worlds, and it's this incredible thing.
Okay. Laird's book, Worse Angels, we mentioned
that guy. Come on, enough of him.
All right. I'm so sorry. I'm ashamed.
That's enough. Enough out of you, Davis.
We also mentioned Ellen Final Cut. I believe I said that was June the 2nd, which is coming right up. So just go ahead and pre-order it. Just here's a little nostalgia. I posted about this the other day. 2015 Necronomicon. The Doom That Came to Providence. If you're listening later and you can't see this on the screen because you're not watching, which is fine, just Google The Doom That Came to Providence, Necronomicon 2015. This is such a great little chapbook that Joe Pulver put together. There's a lot of us in there writing tongue-in-cheek things basically about the 2015 Necronomicon and how something horrible happens and ruins the convention. And I don't want to give it away, but tentacles and Lovecraft and horrors are involved. So I just gave it away. No, but different formats. Like I've got, I for whatever insane reason, somebody must have paid somebody something. I'm the first story in the book, but Joe didn't want me to write a story. He wanted me to write a series of tweets by Lovecraft eZine. So I've got like 4 pages of tweets here where I'm like live reporting what's happening on the scene. So it's it's pretty funny. You know, it starts off with, or at least I think it's funny. Maybe nobody else does. I think I mentioned you showing up at some point, John. Maybe
Damn it.
not. Maybe not. Maybe I killed you in this. I can't remember.
On the other hand, geez.
Yeah, it's nice. You cannot. I don't think you can get this anywhere. It used to be $10, but it was very limited edition. But you can get the print. If you Google Nick Gucker and the Doom That Came to Providence, I believe you can still buy the print, and you know it's.
I love Nick's stuff.
Yes.
He always amazes me, man.
Yeah.
Every new piece that he has online, I love seeing his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
it's pretty cool. I want to recommend a book that's been out forever that certainly hasn't been widely released or anything like that. It's by a guy by the name of Michael Canali, Knally. It's called Thoughts of God, and it's a murder mystery, but it's really so much more than that. It's basically, it sets up God as using the universe as some kind of experiment to learn things, more or less. And that's all I'm going to say, because there's some really amazing stuff in here. It actually is available on Kindle Unlimited, but the insertions where God is thinking or looking at a scene on another planet, that sort of thing, is usually in a different typeface, and that doesn't translate as well. I mean, you could still read it and figure it out, but it doesn't translate as well to the Kindle as it is in the paperback. You know, there's this regular mystery set on Earth about this serial killer, this child predator, along with all this other stuff. So it's a pretty unique concept.
A cosmic game of Clue. It was Langan in the parlor with the candlestick.
Well, it's always...
Damn it, Ford! You weren't supposed to reveal that!
It's always Langan, but usually the weapon changes from time to time.
I would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for you meddling panelists.
That's right.
And your dog, if there's a dog around, or a cat or something.
Sorry, Mike.
That little dead guy on top of Bridget's bookcase there, yeah.
Yeah.
He was the victim.
I think that's all I got, except to say that John, you may remember this. I recently reread this. You remember this from 1988? Fables, Denny O'Neil.
Yes, I do remember that, where it was the linked annuals, and it was
Yes.
Question, Green Arrow, and Batman. Yeah, those were terrific. That was back when Batman was not like just a sort of, I don't know, lunatic who was beating the crap out of everybody, but was like a detective.
Yeah, I think he's getting more into that now, but yeah, he's still he's just still got his winning personality in 1988 that he has now. But you know, yeah, Fables Part 1 is Batman, Talia al Ghul, and the basic concept of the plot, you have to read all three in order, is that this monk has lived for 150 years, and he finally decides it's time to die. And the reasons aren't given until the last story and the question. And I won't give them away because it's like in the very last page of the last comic, and it's absolutely one of the best comic book stories I've ever read. The first one is Batman Detective Comics. The second one's Green Arrow, Fables 2, and the last one is The Question, Fables 3.
And what would it cost to buy those now?
I don't remember. I think it was 2 Christmases ago that Danielle and Logan gave them to me for a Christmas gift. But I was looking. I live in a small town, so I get a lot of comics on Comixology. And I was looking, last time I looked, these were not available on Comixology.
Yeah.
And I haven't had time to thoroughly look. I found Batman Fables 1, and I found the question Fables 3 on Comixology. I'm still looking for Green Arrow Fables 2. So if anybody finds that, send me the link. I'll keep looking. But this is, if you're a comic book fan or DC fan at all, this is really, really worth your time. Wouldn't you say, John?
Yeah, the thing about it, the thing about it is that, like, it's not like I feel like these days every Batman, like, it's all like the end of the world.
Right.
It's all, and this is just, no, this guy is trying to die, and he's kind of wanders through and has these encounters with these sort of street level superheroes, if you will.
Yeah, non-powered superheroes.
And there's there's fights and that sort of stuff, but it's just, man, it's refreshing in a way for how down to earth, if you will, it is. I can still remember the line from the Green Arrow, "Oh, you mean my shell? I've thrown it away."
Yeah.
It just was so kind of cool and low key, and man, I miss that, and I don't really follow a lot of superhero comics anymore. Pre-corona, I would go into like my local comic book shop every now and again and just kind of leaf through things and try to sort of keep up with what was going on, But there's a couple of things I buy, but I don't buy most superhero comics because they're gorgeous. Don't get me wrong; the production values are fantastic, but it's always just like the end of the world, the end of the world, the end of the world. And there's an episode of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know.
I want the plural of apocalypse.
Well, right. When Giles says to them, it's the end of the world, and they all look at him and they're like, again?
What's the question? What's the question?
The question is a crime fighter who uses some sort of really advanced, and he's got a friend that does this for him, a really advanced rubber sort of mask. You can see his face here, and it's featureless. But he can breathe, he can see, but he basically, you can see that he's got a nose underneath, you can see that he's got eyes, you can't see the outline of a mouth, and he calls himself the Question because one of his defining characteristics is his curiosity.
He was the basis for Rorschach in The Watchmen.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Because he was originally he was created for a comic book company called Charlton Comics.
I remember
that. DC bought the rights to.
And the other thing, this is back when Green Arrow was older than Batman or Superman. And he is very much this, what would you call him today, social justice warrior, except he's not sitting on his in front of his computer. He's out there doing things, So it's a really great story. 1988 September. I have to imagine that I just haven't found it yet. If Fables 1 and Fables 3 is on Comixology, then surely Fables 2 with Green Arrow is. But you're right, John, that I discarded my shell. The premise is that the monk, he's one of Lady Shiva's teachers, who Lady Shiva is one of the most lethal fighters on the planet. And he decides it's time to die. She's told him about these three guys, throughout the years. And he decides to visit them, and he wants to give them each a gift. And they meet with Batman, and Batman's like, "Yeah, Chris, you were late. Christmas was months ago." And the guy tells Batman a fable. And Batman's like, "Okay, whatever." And Shiva says, "If you decide that this fable has been of value to you, then you owe us a debt, and we'll ask you to repay it. But only if you decide that this fable was of value to you." Then they disappear from that first comic, and I won't give anything away except to say that Batman does decide that what they told him meant a lot to him. So it's very good. Does somebody have to go? Is that why you're waving at me?
I don't know. Somebody left and I waved.
Okay.
There was a murder, Mike. While you were talking about Batman, somebody was murdered on screen.
You'll solve it. I have no doubt. Of all the comics I read in the 80s, and there were a lot of them, the three that stand out are The Dark Knight obviously stands out, but Fables and Phantom Stranger Secret Origins stand
where they had
out even
the
more.
4 different origins for him. They asked 4 writers to come up with 4 different origins for the Phantom Stranger.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
Alan Moore and Mike Barr, and I can't remember who the others were. But
four different writers. And Alan Moore was the last story, if I remember correctly, in the book.
So, Mike, were you always more a DC fan than a Marvel fan?
Yeah.
When you were growing up? Yeah,
I was. But I did like Spider-Man a lot. He's very relatable, especially when you're a kid. You know, he was when I was a kid, he was a high school kid. You know, trying to deal with this. But Marvel has done such a fabulous job with their movies. You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's me droning on about these comics, and I think John's interested in possibly nobody else. Well, maybe Rick. Anything else we need to talk about before we go? I really appreciate you being on the show, Jeff.
Oh, I had a good time this time. I had a good time last time, and I was even out of an operation then. So
that's right.
This was fun.
I forgot
good to see
that.
everybody here. I think a couple of people were here last time too. I think Rich was here, and the other. I think the other guy was there too last time.
Matthew was here.
Yeah, it's great to see Langan, and good to see you guys. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you too. So
nice meeting you.
Folks, pick up Out of Body, pick up The Shadow Year and Out of Body, and next year we'll be talking to Matthew Bartlett, and we'll see everybody then. Thanks to all the patrons, all the audience, and really thanks to all of you for being here. And we will see you next week.
Thanks, Mike.